No entendí.
I didn't quite understand. So we can heal both types of diseases, those that we create and those that appear because of the set of rules. How can we help people at the being level, people who are fearful or people who have a lot of guilt? How can we help them?
Okay. When you use your intent to modify future probability and your healing in that sense, all you're doing is modifying future probability. You're modifying what happens here in the virtual reality, what's probable to take place in the virtual reality. So that's what's happening. You're not changing that individual. You cannot use your intent to make somebody else grow up. They have to do that themselves. So an intent to make someone else let go of their fear isn't going to make them let go of their fear. Now you can use your intent to calm them down. You can use your intent to get them excited. You can do that sort of thing. Their physical expression, if you will, you can change, because that's something that's happening in this physical virtual reality, and you can modify the probability of that happening or not happening. But you're not changing the person at the being level. Okay, so you can heal a tumor or speed up the healing of a broken arm or doing that kind of stuff, but you're not changing them fundamentally. You can't add or subtract to what's at their being level. The only person that can change them, because what's at their being level is them. I mean, that's who they are. And they are who they are, and only they can change that. They have to let go of fear. You can't make it happen. In some situations, in some environments, letting go of fear is easier than in others. Let's say you're in an environment where you're constantly besieged by things. You constantly, feel like you're under attack. You constantly feel like you have to be on your guard. You're fearful because in your mind, the enemy's at the door and you have to always be ready and vigilant. And if you're in that kind of a mode, letting go of fear is really hard, because your fear is being triggered and part of your life all the time. So what can somebody do to help you let go of that fear? They can help change that environment. If they can give you a sense of security, a sense of everything's all right, then you can maybe relax and deal with your fear, because you're not constantly, you don't feel under siege all the time. So the environment that a person's in can make it easier or harder for them to be forgiving or be accepting, to analyze their ego and what's causing them trouble, and that they're upset. I mean, you have to have a little bit of calm space to do that in. And if you don't have any calm space, then it's very difficult. So giving somebody else that calm space, that support, that caring, that gives them the freedom to change themselves, that's as much as you can do. You can't use your intent to fix somebody else's being. That would be really, what's the word, forcing your free will on them. You can change a bit of what they experience by changing the probability of what happens in the future, but you can't overrun their free will. They have to have the free will to do that. You just can't go in and twist their buttons and flip a switch and now they're somebody else. That wouldn't be a good thing. That could happen. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. There are two questions by two different people, but they are very similar. They go hand in hand, so I will ask them together. When I identify my fears, I don't know how to eliminate them in order to be able to relate to others from a love-based perspective. How can I modify my fear? Can you give us an example? Would you say that a person who does bad things, for instance, a drug dealer, is afraid of many things since he's very young and doesn't have the ability to love?
The answer to that last question is yes. Most of our negative behavior is fear-based, ego-based. We do the things we do, the I want, I need. If you're dealing drugs, it's because you want the money or you want the power. Well, why do you want money and power? Because that makes you feel secure. You want to feel secure because you feel powerless, you feel insecure, so you want power because you feel powerless. You want to be secure because you feel insecure. You see, it's the fears, the insecurity that drives people to do those things. If you are love-based, then those kinds of things just don't, you just don't do them. You don't want to do them. So that's the second part of your question. Yes, people who do that have a lot of fear. And what's an example of how do you overcome a fear? Well, I've told you in general that the way you overcome fear is with courage and that you face it. You accept it. You look it square in the eye and say, give me your best shot. I accept whatever happens. I will own it. I will deal with it, and I will go on. You cannot defeat me. You might hurt me, you might cause me to, spend a lot of time doing other things, but I will go on. I'll recover. I'll be all right. And, there are people who feel,
hay gente que siente,
for example, who feel inadequate.
Por ejemplo, que tienen la sensación de insuficiencia, que sencillamente pues no se sienten valiosos, que no se sienten muy seguros de sí mismos, se sienten como que siempre son menos, no tienen mucha confianza en cuanto al valor que ellos pueden aportar en una situación, se sienten débiles, se sienten pequeños, y eso es un temor, el temor de no ser suficientemente bueno, el temor de ser insuficiente.
What they would do is say, well, okay, I'll face that
Lo que ellos
fear.
deberían hacer
All
es
right,
decir, bueno, voy a enfrentar ese temor.
I'll admit, I'm inadequate.
Tengo que aceptar el
That's
hecho
just
de
the
que,
way I
pues sí,
am,
vamos
but
a
I'm just
suponer
going to
que
be
yo soy
myself. I'll
insuficiente.
be
Puede
my
ser que sea
inadequate self,
insuficiente,
and
que
that'll be
sea
good
débil,
enough,
pero
because
voy a
that'll be
ser
where
esa
I'll
persona
start to
débil, que yo soy,
learn
va a ser
to
suficiente,
become
voy
more
a
adequate.
aceptarlo porque
I'll grow.
conforme yo
Because
lo
as long
sea,
as I'm
voy a
just
poder
crouching in
cambiar,
fear
ir creciendo,
of my
porque si me
inadequacy,
quedo
I
aquí
can't learn
con
Once I become a
sensación de
genuine, authentic person,
insuficiencia y de que soy
and I
menos,
admit
pues me
that
voy a quedar
I'm
aquí en una
inadequate, then I
esquinita,
can
pero
go out in the world and do what
yo
I do,
entienda
and as
que
I make
soy
mistakes, I'll learn
insuficiente y
from them
como
and
voy a
become more.
seguir aprendiendo de mis
Okay?
errores,
That's
bien que los
facing the
cometa,
problem. That's
pues
taking the
adelante, esa es la
courage
manera de enfrentarlo,
to
eso es ser valiente.
who you
Y
are
tomar ese
and what you
valor
are.
y ser
And
quien
what you will
realmente
find when you
eres,
do that,
lo
you'll
que
go
eres,
out
y
into
lo
the
que vas a
world
encontrar es que
and
cuando
everything
salgas
will work
al
out
mundo,
really
las
well.
cosas van a empezar a
And you will
funcionar
make
mucho mejor.
mistakes and
Y
you'll
claro
grow
que vas
from
a
them.
cometer errores, pero crecerás
It's the fear
a
of the
partir de esos
inadequacy,
errores.
a fear of the
Es
inadequacy
el temor y el
that keeps
temor
you
de ser
from reaching
menos
out
lo que
and making those
realmente te
connections and
evita
doing
que
those
salgas
things.
y
And
hagas
if you
cosas
just
buenas.
do it anyway
Y
and
si
say, I don't have to be
solamente las
perfect.
haces a pesar
I don't
de
have to
que
be the
no
one
te
that solves
sientas
all the
capaz, a
problems.
pesar de que digas, bueno,
I'll
pues
just be
está
who
bien,
I
yo
am.
no tengo por qué resolver
I'll
los
give my
problemas, no
own
tengo por
little
qué ser el
tiny
mejor, no pasa
contribution,
nada, voy a
and
hacer
people can
mi
make
contribución
of it
aunque
what
sea
they
muy
want.
pequeñita y la gente
can
pues que
ignore
tome
it,
lo que quiera.
can use
Si
it.
quieren ignorarlo, que lo ignoren,
That's
si
okay.
quieren aprovecharlo, que
I'll
lo
make the
aprovechen,
best
a mí me da
decisions
igual,
I
voy a
can,
tomar las
the
mejores
things
decisiones
that
que
I have to
pueda
deal with,
y voy a
and
lidiar
after
con las
that the
cosas con las
chips
que
will
tengo que
fall where they
lidiar
may.
y
You see,
después todas las
that's
piezas
the
se
courage
acomodarán.
to be
Ese es
who
el
you
valor
are.
de ser
If you
quien
do
eres.
that, you will
Si
very
lo
quickly
haces,
lose that
entonces
fear of
muy
inadequacy,
rápidamente
because what
podrás
you'll
perder
find
ese temor
is
de
that
ser
people
menos,
do
de
listen to
ser
you,
muy pequeñito,
that you
porque
are
te darás
adequate,
cuenta de
that
que
you
sí
do
eres
bring
suficiente, de que la
good
gente sí
value
aportas cosas buenas, de que
to the
traes
table,
valor
to the situation.
a cualquier
And as you have that
situación, a cualquier
experience,
relación, y conforme
your
sientas
fear
esa experiencia y
starts
tengas
going
esa
away,
sensación, poco a poco
because now you're
podrá
not afraid
desaparecer
to
ese
get out
miedo,
and
porque ya
experience.
no te dará
Before,
miedo salir y
you
vivir
have
esas
this
experiencias.
is a
Antes,
very,
en
very
cambio,
common strategy,
esta es
and
de
that
hecho es una
is,
estrategia muy
I
muy
can't
común.
lose if I don't
que
play.
es que nosotros normalmente pensamos, bueno, pues si no entro al
Fact
juego,
is,
no puedo perder.
You always lose
Pero la realidad es
if you
que
don't play.
siempre pierdes si no juegas.
You can't win if
No
you don't
puedes
play.
ganar si no
So
juegas.
because you feel inadequate,
Entonces,
you don't
si te sientes
volunteer,
menos,
you
te sientes que
don't
no eres
stand up
capaz,
and
y por eso
talk.
no
You're afraid to get up and
no-
make a
no
speech
levantas la
because
voz, o te da
you're too
miedo hacer las
inadequate. It
cosas,
wouldn't
o
be
no-
good.
no
People would
das-
laugh at
no
you.
das
You see, you
discursos
have all
porque
this
crees que los
fear.
demás se van a burlar de ti o que lo vas a
But
hacer
that
mal,
fear is just a
pues tienes
paper
mucho
tiger.
temor, pero ese
What you're
temor
doing is
no
saying,
es
well, I won't
más
get up
que
and speak
un monstruo de
because
papel.
then people won't make
Si
fun
uno
of me.
dice, bueno, pues
See,
no voy
if
a
I
dar el
don't
discurso
play,
porque la gente se
I
va a
can't
burlar de mí,
lose.
porque
So
así
I
si
don't
no
offer
juego no voy a
my
perder.
ideas.
Entonces
Because,
nunca vas a ofrecer
you know, somebody
tus
might
ideas,
put them down
porque a lo
or
mejor
say they were
piensas que
silly
alguien
or
más las
something. So
descartará, se burlará de
I
ellas
don't
o
want that to
pensará que son
happen. I don't want the
tontas.
rejection,
Y bueno,
therefore I
como yo no
won't
quiero
ever
pasar por ese
offer an
rechazo,
idea.
jamás
That's
voy a
the,
abrir la boca y no voy a decir
I
lo que
can't
pienso,
lose if I don't
porque
play.
así no pierdo.
See,
No pierdo
it's a
si no juego.
self-defeating
Como verán, esta en realidad es una actitud y
that
una
won't get
estrategia
you anywhere. It'll
derrotista
keep you
que no nos
stuck
lleva a ningún
where you
lado,
are.
que te
But
dejará
we
ahí
use that
atorado en
strategy,
donde estás.
most of us do,
Pero la mayoría
all
de
the
nosotros
time.
usamos esta
And, that was just
estrategia todo
one
el
example,
tiempo.
but we use that all the time.
Y esa nada
We
más es
don't
un
do
ejemplo, pero de
things.
hecho lo
We
hacemos todo el
don't
tiempo.
engage.
No
We
hacemos
don't
las
offer.
cosas,
We
no
don't
nos
connect.
ofrecemos, no hablamos, no nos relacionamos,
Because we don't want to play.
porque
If
no
we did
queremos
connect, if we
jugar.
did offer and say,
En cambio,
hey,
si
I have a
sí
good idea, listen to
ofreciéramos
me.
estas ideas y
We're too
habláramos y
fearful that
dijéramos,
everybody
oigan,
will
tengo
say,
esta opinión o
"Huh?
tengo esto, nos da temor que la
why
gente
should
nos
we
voltee a
listen
ver
to
y
you?
diga, "Ah, qué
So
tontería,
therefore
¿por
you
qué voy a
don't
hacer
play
eso?"
because you're afraid
Y
of
por
that
eso no lo hacemos,
rejection.
no jugamos porque tememos el
Instead, you
rechazo.
should, hey, I got an idea, listen
Pero
to
si lo
me. And
hiciéramos,
if
si
you
dijéramos,
get
tengo una idea,
rejected,
oigan todos,
well,
tengo una
you
idea, y
might
nos
say
rechazaran,
it a little louder.
pues bueno,
And if you get
¿qué tal si lo
rejected,
digo con más fuerza?
accept it.
Y si
Say,
te
okay,
siguen
these people aren't
rechazando, pues
interested.
acéptalo.
I'll go
Bueno, a estas personas
interact
no les
someplace
interesa lo
else.
que tengo que
See?
decir, voy a interactuar a otro lado.
Don't say, oh, they rejected
No
me.
digan, no, por Dios,
I'm
me están
inadequate.
rechazando, no soy capaz, nadie me
that's-
quiere.
There's no courage in that.
Eso
That's
no-
running
eso
away.
no es
The
valor,
courage
eso
is
es
to get
huir.
back up,
El valor es levantarte,
interact.
seguir
Just be
adelante,
yourself. Be who
interactuar y
you
ser
are,
tú
and
mismo,
don't
ser
be
quien
afraid
eres, no tengas
to
miedo
express yourself,
de
whatever that
expresarte.
is.
Lo que
And here's
sea
the
que tengas
concept
que
is that
expresar.
if you make
El
mistakes,
concepto es que
or
si
if what you're
cometes
doing
errores o si
isn't
lo que estás haciendo
as good as you
no
wanna
es
be,
tan bueno como quisieras que
you'll grow.
fuera, vas a
You'll
crecer,
learn.
vas a
You'll
aprender,
become more.
vas a
You
convertirte en algo
can't
más.
become more
Pero no
if you
puedes
don't get in the
convertirte en
game.
más si
If
no
you sit back
juegas,
and
si no entras al
are
juego,
afraid
si te
to get up and
sientas
interact.
ahí en una esquinita con temor,
See,
si
so
no quieres
that's how you
interactuar.
know, all these fears work the same
Entonces,
way.
todos estos temores funcionan de la
Courage is
misma
the
manera.
antidote.
El valor es el
You have to have
antídoto.
the courage to be who
Tienes
you
que
are.
tener el valor de
Say
ser
what you
quien
think.
eres, de decir
Express
lo que
yourself.
crees, de expresarte.
And after
de
you
decir
do
lo que
that, if you say,
piensas.
oh, that wasn't very
Y
nice, I
después de
just
hacerlo,
expressed
vas a
myself by
decir,
getting
"Híjole, pues,
angry.
no fue tan
Maybe
bueno
I need
porque
to
me
change
expresé
that."
enojándome,
And that's
tal vez
true.
tengo
You
que
might need to
cambiarlo. Y
change
sí,
it.
puede que eso
But
sea
what you
cierto.
don't need to do
Tienes que
is
cambiarlo, pero
sit
lo que
down and
no
be
debes
quiet,
hacer es sentarte,
stuff that
quedarte
anger back
callado
down
y
inside of
guardarte ese
you,
enojo.
and then a couple of years
Y
later you
después,
have
un par de años
ulcers
después empiezas a
or
tener úlceras
some other kind of
o cualquier
problem,
otro tipo de
okay,
problema
with your system.
dentro de tu cuerpo.
So that's, you know, we could do a lot of examples, but they'd all
Podría
sound
darles muchos
repetitive.
ejemplos, pero pues
It's
serían
courage,
prácticamente
just
lo
the
mismo.
courage
Es
to be
valor.
yourself,
El
and
valor
the
de
courage
ser
to
tú
be
mismo.
open-minded enough
El valor
that you
de
can
tener la
grow
mente
from
abierta
your
como para
mistakes. Don't be
crecer a
afraid to
partir
make
de tus
mistakes.
errores. No tengas
Mistakes
miedo de cometer errores. Los
are our
errores
challenges.
son desafíos,
There are opportunities.
son oportunidades.
Mistakes
Los errores
are our learning
son
tools.
nuestras herramientas
Just
para
go
poder
do it.
aprender. Solo hazlo.
Just be it.
Solo
Whatever you want to
sé
be, whatever you
quien
want to
sea
do,
que
whatever
quieras
you
ser,
are inside,
quien
don't
sea
be
que
afraid to
debas ser,
just
quien
be
sea
it.
que seas por
And then you
dentro,
just let the
sélo.
chips fall wherever
Y
they
luego
fall, and
deja
you
que
deal
todas
with
las
them,
piezas
however they
acomoden como
fall.
tengan que
And then
acomodarse y
you be
después
it again.
enfréntalo y
Deal
después
with those
vuelve a
chips however
hacerlo y
they
después
fall.
vuelve a enfrentarlo.
That's the way you have to
Así es
act
como
in order to
debes
get rid of these
actuar
fears
para
that
poder
paralyze
deshacerte
you
de
from
todos
being
estos temores que te
really who
paralizan
you
y
are
que
and what you
evitan
can
que
be, and they
seas quien
keep you
eres y
from
quien
growing.
puedes ser y que
You
evitan que
can't
crezcas.
change yourself
No puedes
if you're
cambiarte a
not
ti
being
mismo
yourself.
si no eres tú mismo.
If you're pretending you're someone
Si
else,
estás
then it's hard
fingiendo ser
to
alguien
change
más,
yourself
es
because
muy
you
difícil
deny that
cambiarte
you
a ti
really
mismo
even
porque
are that
estás
self.
negando que eres quien eres.
See? So that's how you have to change the fears.
Entonces,
First,
así es
you
como
have
debes
to
cambiar. Para
understand
empezar,
what your
debes
fear is.
entender
What is
cuáles
it that
son tus
frightens you?
temores.
Why
¿Qué
are
es
you
lo que te
afraid
da
to stand
miedo?
up and speak?
¿Por qué te da miedo
Why are
ponerte
you
a hablar
afraid
en
to do these
público?
things?
¿O
And
por qué te da miedo
or
hacer
I
cualquier
have
otra
this,
cosa?
every time this comes up, I feel
Siempre
kind
que
of
sale
like
una
cringing. I feel
determinada
sort of
situación, yo
withdrawn.
me
I
siento
feel
así como
anxious.
retraído, me da
Oh, I have to
ansias.
speak.
Ay,
Oh, I have an
tengo que hablar en
anxiety
público y
attack.
me da como
Whenever
un
you
ataque
get
de
these
ansiedad.
anxiety
Siempre que
attacks,
tengan
whenever
esos
you get these
ataques de
negative
ansiedad, o siempre
feelings,
que
whenever
tengan
you get something that
estos
doesn't feel
sentimientos o
good to
sensaciones
you,
negativas, siempre que tengan algo que no se
that's
sienta
probably your
bien,
ego
probablemente sea
expressing your
una
fear.
expresión de temor
Look
de
for
su
the
ego.
fear, find it.
Entonces
Say,
busquen
oh, I
ese
see.
temor,
I'm
encuéntrenlo.
afraid that I'll make a fool of myself.
Ah, pues
That's
ya
my
sé, lo que me
problem.
da miedo es
Well, why should I
humillarme,
be afraid
verme
of
como
making
un
a fool of
tonto.
myself?
Bueno, ¿y por qué me debería dar
Well,
miedo
because
eso?
I'm inadequate. I can't really
Pues
do this
porque
very
no me
well.
siento
Everybody can do
capaz,
it better
porque
than
no lo
me.
hago bien, porque
You
sé que
see?
hay
And
cientos
then
de
it's like,
personas que
well,
podrían
that's the
hacerlo
fear.
mejor que yo.
That's the
Ah, pues ahí
basic
está,
fear. You have
ahí
to
es el
keep
temor
tracing that
básico.
fear back. Keep
Siempre
asking
traten
questions
de
until you get back to
hacer
the root
preguntas y
fear.
más y más y más
And then
preguntas hasta
say,
encontrar
well,
el miedo origen,
why do I
la
feel
fuente del
inadequate?
miedo.
What makes me
¿Por qué es
think
que
I'm
no
inadequate?
me
Why
siento
really do I
capaz?
think
¿Por
so?
qué
Am I
tengo
that
esta
much
sensación de insuficiencia?
less than everybody
¿Por qué me
else? And you
siento
look
menos
around and
que
you go,
los demás?
no. And you'll find out there's
Y
no
tal vez
rational
encuentren que
reason
no hay una
for you to think
razón
you're inadequate.
racional.
No rational
Por la
reason
que
at all. You
sentirse
just
así,
feel that
no
way.
hay una
And
razón
it probably was something that
racional.
happened to you
Solamente
when
se
you were
sienten
3
así.
years
Tal vez
old
tiene
that
que
you
ver con
don't
algo
even
que les
remember
pasó cuando tenían
anymore.
3 años, que ya ni
You
siquiera
see? And
recuerdan.
it's still affecting you
Y aún
today.
así los está afectando hasta
So
el día
then
de
you
hoy.
just have to make up your mind, well,
Entonces tendrán que tomar
there's
una
no rational
decisión
reason for
y
me to
decir,
be
bueno, pues si no hay
inadequate.
una
I can
razón,
think, I can speak, you know,
puedo
I can
hablar,
walk and
puedo
talk
dar un
and do
discurso,
everything everybody
puedo
else can
hacer
do.
todo lo que cualquier otra persona puede hacer.
Then you have the courage to just
Entonces ya
do
van a
it.
tener el valor
Be
de
yourself.
hacerlo.
All right,
de
and you may
ser
get up
ustedes
to
mismos.
make your first speech and you may
Está bien, pues
stammer.
voy a dar mi primer discurso
may
y a lo mejor
hesitate.
tartamudean un poco, sí, a lo mejor
It
se
may
muestran
not be as good as you'd
dudosos,
like it
a
to
lo
do,
mejor
but
no
you just
son
do
tan
it.
buenos como
And the next one
quisieran
you do, you'll do
serlo,
better.
pero pues ya
And
lo
the next
hicieron
one
y
you
la
do, you'll
próxima
do
vez lo
better.
harán mejor y
You
la
just
siguiente
have to
vez lo
have the
harán aún
gumption to
mejor.
get in the game and be yourself.
Tienen que
Everything
tener el
else will
valor de
take
entrar
care
al
of
juego y ser
itself.
ustedes mismos.
Just let
Todo
the
lo
chips
demás
fall
irá
where they may,
acomodando. Entonces dejen
and
que las
I'll deal
piezas
with those
caigan donde
chips
tengan que caer y
in a
después
caring, positive
enfréntenlo
way. I
de
won't
manera
run.
positiva.
See,
No
that's
voy a
courage.
huir. Eso
And
es
that's
el
the
valor.
tough part, is getting the
Y esa es la
courage to
parte
do that.
difícil, tener el valor de hacer eso.
Okay.
These are also two questions on the same topic. What do you think of the theories that believe that our fate is already decided for us and that we will inevitably get to that place? Where does free will fall there? What about predestination? Do you believe in fate and destiny?
Predestination,
La predestinación,
that everything will happen exactly as it's
el hecho
planned,
de
and
que
you
todo
have a
sucederá de
certain
acuerdo con
role you're
un
going to
gran
play
plan
with
y que
certain
nosotros
results and
tenemos
all
un
that's
papel
planned
con
out.
ciertos
That
resultados
is
que ya están planeados.
antithetical
Eso
to
es, digamos, que la
consciousness
antítesis
and free will.
de la conciencia y del libre albedrío.
If we had a world
Si
or
viviéramos en un
a
mundo
reality
o en
that
una
was
realidad
predestined, in other words,
que
we're
ya
not really
estuviera
conscious.
predeterminada,
We're like
predestinada,
the characters on
donde
the screen
pues no
in a
seríamos
movie. We're
conscientes,
just going
seríamos
through the
como personajes
motions
en
and
una película,
everything is
solo
planned
estaríamos
and
representando un
predestined and what
papel
we
que ya
do.
fue planeado para
Then what are
nosotros
we?
y todo lo que hacemos ya
We're really
alguien lo
nothing.
dijo, entonces ¿qué
We're
seríamos?
not
Pues
making
no seríamos
choices.
nada,
We're
no
not
estaríamos
aware.
tomando decisiones, no
We're-
podríamos darnos cuenta de nada,
Basically, there's nothing there.
básicamente no
Well, if
habría
there's
nada
nothing
ahí.
there, what's the
Y si no
point?
hay nada ahí, ¿cuál es el punto?
Why would any system
¿Por
be
qué
like that?
cualquier sistema, por qué algún
Where's it
sistema
going?
sería
You
así?
know, how does it
¿Hacia
grow?
dónde
There
va?
is no
¿Cómo
growth
crece?
because there is
No hay
no change.
crecimiento
There's
porque
just
no hay cambio.
this script, and all we are
Sencillamente
is
es una especie de
it's just mouthing our
script donde
script.
ya está todo,
No growth,
no hay
No
crecimiento,
change.
no hay cambio,
no potential,
no hay potencial,
nothing.
nada.
Predestination is a dead
La
world.
predeterminación, la
There's no
predestinación es un
consciousness,
mundo
there's no
muerto,
awareness,
un mundo sin
it's just a
conciencia,
dead
un mundo sin
world.
percepción, un mundo muerto.
Dead worlds don't exist.
Los mundos muertos no
You
existen.
know, what happens to things that don't work,
¿Qué
don't have
pasa
any
con las
purpose,
cosas que
don't have
no
any
sirven,
point?
que no tienen
They
propósito, que no tienen
self-destruct, they
punto?
go
Pues se
away.
autodestruyen,
They're failures.
desaparecen, son fracasos.
How would this thing keep going on? How
¿Cómo
would
es
it
que
grow? How would it do
sistema
anything? How
podría
could it
seguir
accomplish
creciendo? ¿Cómo
anything?
avanzaría?
It
¿Cómo
couldn't.
lograría algo? Pues
There's
no podría.
nothing real in it. There's
No podría
nothing
porque no tendría
innovative
nada
in it.
real,
There's
no habría
nothing
innovación, no habría
creative in it.
creación, no habría creatividad. estaría muerto.
So Yes, we do have plans, though.
Entonces,
We can come here with
pero sí
plans.
tenemos planes, porque
And some
nosotros
people,
llegamos a esta realidad virtual con
their plans
planes.
are very
Y hay gente
scripted.
cuyos planes ya están
But
bastante
these are usually people
delineados.
who have
Pero
been on the
normalmente
evolution
estas
game
son
for a
personas
pretty
que ya han
long
estado
time,
en
and they have
este juego
very
de la evolución desde
specific kinds
mucho
of
tiempo, y
experiences that they
entonces
want to
buscan
have or that they
experiencias
need to
muy
have.
específicas que necesitan tener o
They
que
may need
quieren
to have
tener
them
en
for
esta,
themselves, or
en
they
esta
may
vida. Puede
have
que
them.
las
They may
necesiten
need to
para
have
ellos
them for
mismos o
others.
puede que necesiten
But
vivir esas
if you have that
experiencias
kind of
para
a
otros.
of
Pero
a
si tenemos este
incarnation
tipo
where it
de
is more scripted
encarnaciones que
and
ya
less
están
just
bastante
open,
planeadas y
that
mucho
just means
menos
there's
abiertas,
connections you need to
eso solo
make,
significa
people
que
you
tal
need
vez
to
vienes
meet,
a
you
hacer
know,
conexiones
kind of things you need
específicas,
to
gente
do,
con la que
and the
tienes que
system will
interactuar,
nudge
cosas que
you
tienes que
as you
hacer,
go
y
through
el
this to
sistema
be at the
te
right place at the right
ayudará a
time to do what
ubicarte
you
en el
have
lugar
to do.
correcto, en el momento
And you
correcto
may
para que
find
hagas
that
lo
you
que
have
tengas que
this,
hacer, y a lo mejor
unexplainable drive to
parece
do
que
a
tienes un
particular
impulso
thing, and you
inexplicable
don't
de
really
hacer
know where that
algo
comes from.
y no tienes
Well,
ni idea de
maybe
dónde
that's part of
viene
a
eso, pero
plan
puede que eso
that you
sea
had.
parte de los
Now,
planes
this
que
is
tienen,
not
que buscan
standard as far as it's not
materializarse.
average.
Eso no es
Most
lo
of us
promedio,
come in
digamos,
with a
eso no
very
es lo
small
que nos
plan.
pasa a la mayoría de nosotros.
We
La
want to
mayoría de
maybe
nosotros
work on
venimos
anger
con planes
management. We
bastante
may want to work
limitados.
on
Bueno, pues quiero
expressing
trabajar en el manejo de
ourselves.
la
We
ira, o
may want
quiero
to work
trabajar en
on this fear
expresarme,
or that fear.
o quiero
And it's a
lidiar
very
con el
limited
miedo, con
agenda
este
and a
otro
very
miedo. Es
limited
una
plan. And maybe we come with
planeación bastante
people that we
limitada, una agenda
normally
bastante
incarnate with
estrecha, y la
because we just
gente
work
con la
good
que
together as a
nosotros
team. So there's
normalmente
some of that
encarnamos,
going
decimos,
on.
bueno, pues
But
puede
once you
funcionar
get
bien
here,
con esta persona,
it's
pues sí,
free
hay
will.
cierto
That
plan, pero una
plan
vez que
can
llegamos
just
aquí es libre albedrío.
fall apart.
Ese plan ya no
Or
está ahí,
maybe not.
o tal vez no.
You see, with free will,
Con libre albedrío
you can have consciousness.
se puede
With
tener
consciousness, you can have free
conciencia,
will.
y
If
con
you
la
don't have
conciencia se puede
consciousness, you
tener
don't
libre
have free
albedrío.
will.
Si no hay
If you don't have
conciencia,
free
no hay
will,
libre albedrío, y si no hay
nobody's
libre
conscious.
albedrío, entonces no
You're
existe
just
la
walking
conciencia.
through you're just acting out a script for no
Solamente
reason.
estamos representando
So no,
un
I don't
papel,
think that
actuando
determinism is a
un
good idea.
personaje. Entonces no, yo
I
no
don't think that
creo que el
we are
determinismo
here
es una buena idea, no creo
and have
que
to act
estamos
out
aquí nada
a
más para
script.
representar
We
un
have free
papel
will.
como
Now
si
we
fuera
are
una
here with a
película.
purpose.
Sin
We're
embargo,
not
sí
here
estamos
just
aquí con un
randomly.
propósito,
We
no
have
es
a purpose,
aleatorio
and
nuestra
that's to become
presencia
love.
aquí. Sí hay un
That's to
propósito, y
grow
el propósito es
spiritually.
convertirnos en amor, es crecer
That's
a
to
nivel
lower our
espiritual,
entropy, however we
es
want to
disminuir
say
nuestra
that, increase the
entropía,
quality of our consciousness. We
es
are here with a
incrementar la
mission
calidad de nuestra
because we're
conciencia.
part
Sí,
of a
estamos aquí con una
consciousness
misión
system,
porque formamos parte
and
del
that
sistema
system
más
needs
amplio
to
de
evolve.
conciencia, y ese sistema necesita
If it
evolucionar.
doesn't, it'll de-evolve.
Si no lo
So
hace,
yes,
va a
we are
desevolucionar.
purpose-focused.
Entonces sí
But
tenemos
other
un
than that,
propósito,
we're on our
pero
own.
más allá de eso
We make
estamos
choices and
solos,
they're ours,
estamos
and we
aquí
get
para
the
tomar
growth of
decisiones,
or the decrement,
y tenemos
increment or
el
decrement in our growth depending
el
on.
incremento o la disminución
what
en
we
nuestro
do.
crecimiento dependiendo de las decisiones que
So I
tomemos
find
y
the
lo que
whole
hagamos.
concept
Entonces
of
todo este concepto de
determinism
el determinismo
to be
me parece
illogical.
ilógico.
How could you have a system that
¿Cómo
had no creating, had no
podría
choice,
existir
had
un
nothing, just doing
sistema
the
sin
script?
decisiones,
It
sin
has no
creación,
point.
sin nada,
What would be the purpose of
más
that?
que un
There's no
script?
purpose.
Eso no tendría sentido,
If
no
there's
tendría
no purpose and there's
propósito,
no
y si no hay
point,
propósito, pues entonces no hay,
why does it
no hay
exist?
meta, no hay
How could
objetivo.
it
¿Para qué
exist?
existiría? ¿Por qué
You
existiría?
see, it's just illogical that
Es
it is that
ilógico
way.
que fuera
Now,
así,
science
ilógico.
likes to
Ahora,
believe
a
that the
la
world is
ciencia le gusta
deterministic,
creer
and that's
que
a
vivimos en
throwback
un mundo
to Sir
determinista,
Isaac Newton.
y eso
When
nos
Sir Isaac Newton
remonta a Sir Isaac
finally realized
Newton.
that he could describe the motion
Newton
of
se
the
dio
planets
cuenta de que
without the
podía describir el
angels,
movimiento de los
and
planetas
scientists started finding they
no con
could do
los
all kinds of
ángeles,
other
y los
descriptions
científicos
of the way the
empezaron
world
a darse
worked.
cuenta de que podían
It
describir
became
cómo funcionaba
popular
el
to think
mundo
that this
de maneras
whole
diferentes, y eso se
world was
volvió
just a big
muy popular, el
machine.
pensar que este
And we
mundo era
know
como una especie de
machines are
gran máquina,
deterministic.
y sabemos que las máquinas
If
pues son
you turn a
deterministas.
crank of a machine one turn,
jalas
then
una
certain
palanca,
things happen.
una
And
manivela,
every
y la
time you
giras,
turn that
pues va a
crank one
pasar
turn,
lo
those
mismo.
same
Cada
things
vez que
happen.
gires
It's
esa manivela, la
deterministic.
máquina va a reaccionar
That
igual.
machine has no
Una máquina
choices.
no tiene,
Next time
no
you turn the
tiene
crank, something
elecciones,
different will
decisiones.
happen.
No es que cada vez que le
It's
des
not
vuelta
a
a la
machine.
manivela va a pasar algo
See?
diferente. Pues no, las máquinas no
So
funcionan
scientists
así.
tended to think like that.
Entonces los
Oh, we can
científicos
write the
tienden a
equations and we
pensar
can
así,
understand
pues
how
nosotros podemos
everything
escribir las
works.
ecuaciones,
And if
podemos
we could
entender
just
cómo funciona
specify
todo,
the
y si tan
position
solo somos
and
capaces
velocity
de especificar la posición
and
y la
acceleration of
velocidad y la
every elementary
aceleración de
particle
todas
in the
y cada una de
universe,
las
then
partículas
we
hacia
could
las virtudes
predict
del universo,
everything
entonces
else that would
podemos
ever
predecir
happen.
que
Okay, those are
todo lo que podría
delusions of
suceder.
grandeur.
Pero eso más bien son
People who think
son
they know
delirios de
a
grandeza.
whole lot more than they do,
Es gente que cree que sabe
and they
mucho más
don't
de lo
work,
que en realidad
it
sabe.
doesn't work out.
Y
But it's a
no
very
funciona.
popular
Pero
philosophy
es una
among
filosofía muy
scientific
popular
people
entre
that
la
this is a
comunidad
determinist. There is no
científica.
free will.
Esta idea
What's
del
free will?
determinismo,
Free will is
libre albedrío.
impossible.
¿Qué es el libre albedrío? Eso no es
Free
posible.
will is not impossible.
El
We
libre albedrío
discussed
no
free
es
will. It's just
imposible.
a simple,
Y
you
hemos
get to
hablado del libre
choose
albedrío, es
from the
sencillamente una
things that are in
serie de
your
opciones que
immediate
nosotros
decision
podemos
space, those
elegir
things that
dentro
you
de un
know. You
espacio
get
de
to choose
decisión.
how to respond, how to
Nosotros
react,
elegimos cómo reaccionar,
what you
cómo
want to
responder,
do.
qué es lo que queremos
And that's
hacer.
all it is. It's
Y
just
eso
a
es lo único
finite
que
set.
es un
Free will
conjunto
is not
finito
you
de
get to have
decisiones.
whatever
El
you
libre
want.
albedrío no es que podamos hacer lo
I
que
hear that
queramos.
argument all the time. I was interviewed one time and a
Constantemente
lady
escucho ese
said, well,
argumento.
imagine you're a small child and you're in the back seat and you've got one of those little plastic steering wheels to entertain you and the car's moving along and you decide you want to go left to the park. So you turn your little plastic steering wheel and the car goes right back to your home. Do you have free will?
Entonces ese niñito tiene libre
I
albedrío.
said, well, free will isn't getting everything you want. What you have the free will to do is to accept that you didn't get your way and the car is taking you home and not throw a fit because you didn't get your way. That's your choice. You don't get to choose which way the car goes because mom's in this driver's seat. She gets to choose and you get to react to that choice. Stuff happened. You get to deal with it. How do you deal with it? Does the child throw a tantrum? Poor choice. Does the child say, oh, okay, we're going home. Well, then I'll play with my dolly instead of, swing on the swing.
Vamos a casa, entonces pues
Fine.
tal vez voy a jugar con otra
Good
cosa
choice.
en lugar de jugar con
How
el
to
volante,
deal
pues
with
está
it, you
bien.
see. So, free will isn't
Uno
getting
tiene
what
que
you want.
enfrentar y lidiar con lo que sea que pase.
And we also
Libre albedrío no
think that, well, we're
significa
pushed around
obtener
by
todo lo que quieres.
advertisers, by
Pero la
bosses,
publicidad, la
by
propaganda,
family.
nuestros
Everybody's
jefes,
telling us
nuestros
what to do.
familiares,
And we
todo el
don't
mundo
really have any
constantemente nos
choices.
está
We have to
diciendo
do this, we
qué es lo
have
que
to do
debemos
that.
hacer,
I
y a
have
veces
to buy a
pensamos,
car.
ay, bueno,
I have to
entonces
go to
tal vez no
work
tengo
on
libre
time. I
albedrío
have
porque
to pay
tengo
my
que ir a
mortgage.
trabajar, tengo
All
que
these
pagar
things
mi
are
hipoteca, tengo que
manipulating
comprar
me and
esto.
telling me what
Hay
to do. I don't
cantidades
have
de
any
cosas
free will.
manipulándome
That's
y
not
metiéndose
it
en el
either. That's
camino de
just
mi
all
libre
the stuff
albedrío.
that happens.
Pues
You
eso
get to
tampoco es cierto,
react
esas
to
son
all of
cosas
that
que nos
stuff.
rodean, esas son cosas
You
que
can
pasan.
choose
Uno
how you
tiene
deal
la
with
decisión de
every bit of
lidiar
that.
con eso de
You
diferentes
may
maneras.
choose just to
Y ese
take
es
the
el libre
easy path
albedrío.
and go along with
Uno
what
puede
everybody
tomar la
is
decisión fácil
manipulating
de
you to do,
seguir
but that's
todo
your
lo que nos
choice.
están diciendo que hagamos y tomar las opciones de la
Or you
gente
can
que nos
choose to
está
do something
manipulando,
else.
pero eso es una decisión propia.
Okay.
O uno puede escoger hacer otra cosa.
Las personas que viven, por ejemplo,
People who live, for example, in Africa,
más que nosotros,
learn more than we do because of their suffering.
I wouldn't necessarily say that
No
they
diría
learn more than we do.
necesariamente que
I'd say
aprenden
they
más de lo que
learn
nosotros aprendemos.
differently
Diría que
and in
aprenden
different
de manera
ways.
diferente.
Okay? If you're in a place that's just
Si
full of
estás en un
suffering,
lugar que está lleno
then
de dolor y
you're going to
sufrimiento,
learn
pues vas a
lessons
aprender
about
lecciones
dealing with suffering,
sobre cómo
about
enfrentar
doing
el
without,
sufrimiento, cómo lograr
about
vivir con
being
menos,
thankful
por
for what you've
ejemplo,
got.
o el dar gracias por lo que
You know,
tienes.
about sharing whatever you have, about community maybe. You'll learn about that, hanging all of us hanging together to try to survive by cooperating. There are a lot of lessons to learn in dire situations. But there's then other things that you don't
Pero hay muchas
necessarily
otras
have
cosas que no
opportunities to learn.
necesariamente tienes
You
que
may not
aprender
have
a
many
aprender.
opportunities
Tal
to
vez no
learn
tengas
about
muchas oportunidades
creating
para
and
aprender
building
sobre la creación,
and
la
being parts
construcción,
of,
ser creativo,
you know,
o formar
bigger
parte de,
things,
no sé, algo
because
más
there may be
grande,
nothing like that for
porque
you to
no
get involved
tendrías
in.
nada
So we learn
así a tu
different things in
disposición.
different
Entonces
ways.
aprendemos cosas
But to say
diferentes de
that
diferente
those
manera,
people
pero
that are
decir que esas
born
personas
in poor,
que están
destitute places,
creciendo en
places where there's
lugares,
lots of violence,
pobres, abandonados,
places that
llenos
seem
de
to have very
violencia,
few
lugares que
opportunities,
parecen tener
we
muy
make all
pocas
those
oportunidades
judgments in terms
disponibles,
of
pues
how happy and
estamos
how,
haciendo ese juicio con base
should we
en
say, how
qué
much
tan
stuff do they
felices o
have?
qué tantas
Oh,
cosas tienen,
we got a
por
lot of
así
stuff,
decirlo.
you
Como
see,
nosotros
so
tenemos
we're pretty
muchas
satisfied
cosas,
with our lives. We all have
entonces,
two cars in the
nosotros
garage
estamos
and
felices
go to
porque
restaurants
tenemos
and,
dos coches,
you know,
y
maybe
vamos
people
a
to wait on
restaurantes
us
a
and
comer,
that kind of
y
thing. We have
tenemos
jobs.
sirvientes,
So we think
y
that if you don't
tenemos
have all that stuff,
trabajo, y
you're
entonces
miserable.
pensamos
How could I
que,
live with
bueno,
all that
cuando no
stuff?
se tiene todo eso, no se
You
es
could.
feliz.
And there'd be
Pues,
things
sí
that
se
you could
puede.
learn.
Siempre hay cosas que aprender
Sí.
en ambas circunstancias.
So we're very stuff focused.
Pero nosotros
And we
tenemos
see all
un
the people that
enfoque
don't have
en
the
las
stuff that we
cosas,
have and we
siempre
feel,
vemos
oh, boy,
la
how could they get
felicidad y
along?
medimos la realidad
That's
de unas
awful.
personas y otras con
Why would
base en las
anybody
cosas,
want to be
pero
a
eso es
starving
horrible.
child?
Normalmente decimos, pero ¿por qué
You learn
alguien
things that
querría
way.
vivir
And you
sin
learn
estas
things that we
cosas?
can't learn here
Pero ellos aprenden
because we
cosas
don't
que
have
nosotros
those
no
kinds of
podemos
challenges
aprender,
here.
porque nosotros
So
no
we don't
tenemos
necessarily
esos
learn those kinds of
desafíos,
things. And if
entonces
that's
no
what you need to
aprendemos
learn,
eso. Y si
that's
eso
where
es
you
lo que
go
tienes que aprender,
to
pues
learn it.
hacia allá irás. para
you
aprender.
probably learn a lot of humility there.
Tal
You
vez
probably don't
aprenderás
have much
mucho sobre
arrogance
humildad.
if you're a
No
starving
tendrás
child.
mucha arrogancia.
Probably very little arrogance in those poor
Tal vez habrá muy
communities.
poca arrogancia en esas
Well, if
comunidades
you learn,
pobres.
if you need to learn to not be arrogant,
Si
maybe
lo
that's
que
what you
necesitas
need
es
to do.
aprender a no ser
see.
arrogante, pues tal vez necesites
So it's just
ir
different.
hacia esos lugares.
So
Entonces,
it's not
es
that
diferente.
our,
No es que
incarnating here,
encarnar aquí
is a great advantage.
implique
There is a
una
terrible
ventaja y
thing to
para
have to
ellos
suffer.
una
It's just
desventaja
different.
porque
They're all
tienen que
different
sufrir o
learning
viceversa. No, es
venues.
diferente, son
And
diferentes
they're all,
circunstancias en las
they
que
all enable you
aprender.
to grow.
Pero
The
ambas
idea isn't
series de
that you win this
circunstancias
game
nos ayudan
if
a
you
crecer.
collect a whole lot of stuff.
No estamos en este
Collecting
juego
the stuff
para
doesn't
tener
matter,
muchas
or if you
cosas.
never feel
Tener muchas
pain.
cosas no importa,
Whether you
o
feel
no
pain or
sentir
not isn't the
dolor.
point either.
Ese
It's
no es
what
el
do you
punto.
learn.
El punto es que se aprende.
Okay.
Los sueños son anhelos.
Are dreams yearnings?
En los sueños puede haber intercambio de
Can there be exchange of energy in dreams?
Yes, there can be an exchange of
Sí,
energy
puede
in
haber
dreams.
intercambios de
Most
energía en
dreams are
los
kind of
sueños. La mayor
solitary.
parte
You're
de
the
los
player,
sueños
and,
suelen ser
the
solitarios.
other
De
people
hecho,
are kind of
ustedes son
actors
el
in
único
your dream,
jugador y
if you
los
will.
demás son actores dentro
But,
de su sueño y que desempeñan papeles secundarios.
Dreams have a point.
Los
They're
sueños
not just
tienen
yearnings.
un
They can be
propósito,
yearnings.
no son
You
nada
know,
más
that could be part of
añoranzas,
it.
pueden ser
You may have a
añoranzas,
yearning
puede ser
to
parte de
travel,
puede tal
and you may
vez
travel
alguien
in your
añorar
dreams,
viajar
let's
y
say, or a
entonces
yearning
viajar
to
en
be
sus
free,
sueños, o puede añorar ser
or to be
libre,
something else
o
than you
añorar
are, and you may
ser
dream
algo
about
diferente a lo
that
que
just
es,
to
y a lo mejor
experience
tienes un
it.
sueño para
But
poder
dreams,
vivirlo, experimentarlo,
the dream
pero
reality
la
is just
realidad de los
another
sueños
virtual
es
reality
solo una
like
realidad
this one.
virtual diferente,
Okay,
pero muy
so
parecida a esta.
our lot is to work,
Nuestro
work.
papel es
We work
trabajar,
all
trabajar
day,
y trabajar.
and we work all night.
Trabajamos en el día y
What's the work
trabajamos
we're
en la
doing?
noche.
We're
¿Cuál es el
having
trabajo que estamos
experiences.
haciendo?
We're
Pues tener
reacting to that
experiencias y
experience,
reaccionar a
and we're
esas
growing up
experiencias y
or we're
crecer.
growing down.
O
That's our job. We do it all
crecer o
day. We
descrecer,
do it all
por así
night.
decirlo.
A little later, I'll talk some
Un
about
poquito
sleep,
más adelante
what
hablaré
sleep
sobre el
does
sueño
for us
y
and
lo
so
que
on.
el sueño
But
nos
anyway,
ofrece.
dreams are another
Pero los
learning
sueños son sencillamente
environment.
otro
And we can
entorno
learn
para
there,
aprender.
just like you can
Podemos
learn
aprender
as a
ahí,
poor
al igual
person
que
in
se puede aprender
a poor
como
village in Africa. You
alguien
can
en
learn
una
things
comunidad muy
there
pobre en
that you
África.
don't
Allá se
learn
pueden
here.
aprender
And you
cosas
can
que no
learn
aprendes
things here
acá,
that you don't
y
learn
aprendes
there.
cosas acá
It's the
que no
same with the
aprendes
dreams.
allá,
We
y
can
lo
learn
mismo pasa con los
things,
sueños.
have
Podemos aprender
experiences in a
cosas y tener
dream that
experiencias
we're
en
not
los
going to
sueños
have here.
que no vamos a tener
We
aquí.
just can't have them here
Que no
because
podemos
our
tener
reality
aquí,
is too buttoned
porque
down with
nuestra
our rule set,
realidad
and everything
está
has to be
demasiado
nice
anclada a
and
nuestro conjunto de
continuous.
reglas, donde
And
todo
in a
tiene
dream,
que
it
ser
doesn't have to be
continuo
like
y
that at
demás, y en
all.
el sueño pues no es
And
así
many
para
dreams are
nada.
given to
Y
you.
muchos sueños
They're not even your own in that
muchos
sense.
sueños
You
se
dream
nos
it,
dan, por
but the
así
larger
decirlo. No
consciousness
es que nosotros
system
los
gives you
creamos,
that
sino que el
dream
sistema más amplio de
to give you an
conciencia nos da
opportunity
esos
to
sueños
make a
para
choice.
ofrecernos una oportunidad de tomar una decisión.
Okay? That happens a lot.
Eso pasa con
Those
mucha
dreams are
frecuencia.
custom
Esos
designed
sueños
just for
fueron
you to give you
diseñados
the kind of
específicamente
choices
para
and
nosotros,
things to
para
deal
darnos
with that you need to
decisiones
deal with.
específicas para lidiar con cosas que tenemos que enfrentar.
Somebody was talking to me yesterday and
El día
said
de
they had
ayer
these dreams
alguien
where
me
they
estaba
always
contando
were
que
chasing a
tenía
train
sueños en los
and
que
they could
de
never
repente
catch it.
estaba corriendo
It's like,
para
oh, they have
tratar
to
de
be on that
tomar un
train. It's the
tren,
most important
y
thing in the world to be
decía,
on that
para
train,
mí lo
but
más
there goes the
importante en
train
ese
and I'm
momento era
not
subirme a
there
ese tren, y sin
and
embargo, por
I
más
miss
que
it.
corría,
You
nunca lo
see?
alcanzaba y el tren siempre se iba.
Well, that gives that person an
Pues eso le
opportunity
está dando
to
a esta
deal
persona una
with
oportunidad para
missing
poder
the train.
enfrentar el
Something
no
they were
tomar el
supposed
tren,
to
el
do
perder el
and they
tren,
failed to do it.
el lidiar con
Now they
algo
have
que
to deal
tenían
with
que
it.
hacer
What do they
y que
do?
no lograron hacer.
Well,
¿Cómo
if
lo
their reaction
enfrentan?
is
¿Cómo
to,
lidiaron? Si su
I
reacción
missed
es
the
decir,
train, and
"No,
they have a
se
big
me fue el
problem.
tren",
Well, that's
tienen
not the
un
right
gran
reaction, but they have an
problema, no es la
opportunity to
reacción
say,
correcta.
oh, I
Pero tienen
missed
la
the
oportunidad de
train,
decir,
no
pues
big
bueno,
deal.
se me fue el
I'll get
tren,
the
no
next
pasa
one.
nada, puedo
See?
tomar el
Now
que
you've
sigue.
dealt with it effectively.
Y entonces ya lo enfrentaron
not
de
dealt with it with
manera
fear
adecuada, porque
or
no lo enfrentaron
the
con
feeling
miedo, ni
bad about yourself.
sintiéndose
It's not that
mal
you failed.
con ustedes
It's just
mismos.
that
No es que
that's
fracasaron.
the way the chips fell.
Eso es lo que
Now
así
you'll deal with
cayeron
them.
las piezas y ahora hay que enfrentar la situación.
So that's the thing. You have opportunities
Entonces,
to to deal with things in dreams
oportunidades para lidiar
that in
con
a simple
cosas.
way. So dreams like that are often just given to you. And the way you can tell you're in one of those dreams that's just been given to you is you might call it a test, but it's not really a test as it is an opportunity to make choices, is that they just happen out of nowhere.
Y suceden de la nada.
You're completely unconscious and then there you are. And you need to go, you need to be on that train and it's pulling away. You see, the situation just happens. There's no long story that gets you there. You're just thrown into this little vignette, you know, this little drama. And the whole thing is set up for your reaction. How are you going to react to this? And then you get to react, and as soon as you react, it's gone. Because you got the lesson, you got the test. There was your answer, was your reaction. You failed or passed. If you fail, you get to do it again. If you fail, you get to do it again. You may have a similar dream. On and on and on again, it means you probably are working on it and not getting the right answer. So you can have dreams that are set up to frustrate you, dreams that are set up to anger you, dreams that are set up to tempt you to do things that you know aren't right, dreams that are set up to do all these kinds of things. And they're just given to you, and now you have to react. You just suddenly find yourself in this terrible situation, or this wonderful situation where you can really take advantage of something or whatever, and now you get to choose. So we work all day here, making choices, dealing with our fear, and we work all night, you know, in our dreams. But all dreams aren't just that way. Some dreams are just because you are saturated with something, or you have a yearning for something. You know, let's say you had this, because of something you were doing that was special. Maybe you're doing a wedding, or maybe you're doing some kind of event, and you have 800 envelopes to lick and put stamps on. And you spend 6 hours all day long, it seems. You're putting on a stamp, licking the envelope, and you do them, and you do them, and you do them. And that night, what do you do in your sleep? You lick envelopes, you know, because you're saturated with that, and it just runs right on into your dream. Well, that's not a test of anything. That's just, you know, you've done it so much you just can't let it go. You're attached to it. You're so full of it that it's hard to let go of. And sometimes you'll dream, like the question said, of things that you want to do or want to be. And then you get a chance to feel about them. Is this really what you want? How does that look? Okay. Here you are. You're a big executive downtown in a limousine, and you're doing this and you're doing that. And you get to the office and there's 10 people run up to you and they all need your attention right away and you're very important. Is that really what you want? Is that the kind of life you want to lead? You notice how anxious you are and the stress that you've got because all these people depend on your answer before they can do anything else, and you're holding everybody up without that answer. And there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of requirement for you to really have done your homework, and yet you don't feel that good. But you can't sit down and be sick because too much depends on you, and you get to do that in a dream, and you get to decide, is that really where you want to go? You want to be in that position of authority, or maybe not. You may love it. You may decide, maybe I really don't want to do that. Dreams are very useful. They're very useful for us to work out issues with and experience. How else could you experience being an executive? You can't, right? Unless you do it and see what it feels like, but in your dream you can sample all sorts of things. A lot of things that you would never do here. All those lusts and desires and things that you have that you might do, but you wouldn't because that wouldn't be right or wouldn't be nice. You may do them in your dreams. And then see how you feel about it. Okay. So dreams are wonderful teachers if you pay attention.
I have premonitions and feelings beforehand. Many of these have been fulfilled. I feel anguish when I have them because I know that these may be fulfilled. How can I handle that?
Yeah. this is not all that uncommon.
No es tampoco
I
común
know,
experimentar
a couple of
esto.
dozen
Yo
people
conozco
who have
unas
precognitive
2
dreams
personas que
or
tienen
just
sueños
premonitions,
premonitivos,
and they know
premoniciones,
things.
sentimientos.
And it's one thing to know that
Una cosa es saber.
a check's arriving in the mail, it's another
Cheque
thing to
en el
know
correo,
that your
te
Uncle
van a hacer
Fred's
un
going to
pago, y
drop
otra
dead.
cosa es
You see,
anticipar
these are
o
two
que tu
different
tío
kinds
Fred
of
se va a morir.
things.
Son dos cosas
And what you
totalmente
have to
diferentes. Lo que
do
tiene que hacer
is ask yourself
es preguntarse
a question.
una pregunta.
Is this something
¿Es esto algo
that I need to do something
que
about?
neces-
Is it really
se
something
tenga que
that,
actuar? ¿Se
is it
trata
an
de algo
opportunity
que
for me
sea
to
para mí una oportunidad,
give some
una oportunidad
information
de
or
compartir información?
do something about it?
¿O hacer algo
Or
al
is it
respecto?
not? Is
¿O
it
no?
just for me to
¿O es
know
nada más algo que
and I
sencillamente
can't do
debo
anything
saber y
about
no
it
puedo
at
hacer nada al
all? I
respecto?
just have to let it
Sencillamente
be.
tengo que
Well, then
dejar
you
que
need to
sea.
take it
Si ese es el caso,
very, instead of being upset
en
by
lugar
it,
de
you
enojarse
just
por
need to
ello,
say, well, that's it.
tendrán que decir, ¿sabes
It
qué?
is the way it is.
Así es como
I
tiene que
can't do
ser.
anything about
No
it.
puedo hacer
I
nada al
can't change it.
respecto, no
I didn't
podré
make it
cambiarlo,
happen.
yo
I
no lo
just have
provoqué,
this knowledge,
sencillamente tengo esta información,
accept it.
este conocimiento, debo aceptarlo.
and that's it. Again, the courage to accept, rather than saying, oh no, this is not what I want. This isn't good.
O sea, esto no está
This is
bien,
terrible.
esto es
Well,
terrible.
that's your ego
Ese es
talking.
su
That's
ego
your fear
hablando.
talking. It's
Ese es
not
su
the way
miedo
you want
hablando.
it to
No es la
be.
forma en la que quieren que
Instead,
sea.
accept it that that's the way it is.
Hay que aceptar que así
And
será.
most of those
Y la mayor
things
parte de ese tipo
are
de
not
cosas,
for you to change anything.
no es-
Typically,
son
when you get
cosas
these
que deben
precognitive
cambiar.
dreams, it's
Cuando
not
tienes
because you're
estos
supposed to
preparativos,
rush off and warn Uncle Fred that he shouldn't drive that day
tipo
because
Fred, o sea,
you dreamt that he had an accident.
si va a tener un
Mostly these
accidente,
things are
va a
for
morir.
you to
La
just
mayor parte de este
become
tipo de
aware
información es
of,
información que sencillamente
in the
debemos
larger
tener
reality,
en
that
esta
data
realidad
is
más
available.
profunda, en la que,
Somehow
más
you're
completa,
tapping
perdón,
into
en la
that
que,
data. Maybe it's being given to you by the larger conscious system
tal vez
because you
se
can
le está
use it.
permitiendo el
It
sistema
will
más amplio
show
de
you
conciencia porque
that
sí
reality
les
is
muestra,
larger
les
than
quiere
maybe you
mostrar
thought
que la
before.
realidad es más grande de lo que ustedes se imaginaban hasta ese momento.
Okay? So you're getting
Que
data from the future
están
probable
recibiendo,
database.
datos o
And those things
información
don't
de
always
esa
have
base
to
de datos,
happen because we have free will, things can
sí.
change.
Y
But maybe they're
tenemos
highly
el libre
probable.
Sí, pero no podemos cambiar.
Look at it as a
Aún así
gift,
puede ser
not
algo
as a
de
curse,
Dios. Véanlo como un presente,
because
un
you have
regalo,
vision
como
that
una
others don't
bendición.
have.
Sí, porque tienen
Accept
visiones
it.
que otros
Don't
no
feel
tienen.
guilty of
Acéptenlas,
because
no se
you
sientan
know and there's
culpables,
nothing you can do
porque
to
ustedes ya lo
stop
saben
it.
y no hay nada que puedan
It's not
hacer
your
para
responsibility to stop
detenerlo.
it.
No es su responsabilidad
Just accept
detener
it.
esas cosas. Hay
It's
que
a gift.
aceptarlas. Ese es un
And
don.
learn from it
Y
if you
aprendan de
can.
ellos si pueden.
Play with it
Jueguen con
if you
ello,
wish,
si desean hacerlo.
so that you
De
can
tal forma
encourage
que
it or
puedan,
discourage
sí,
it.
descartar eso o
Just, you have to kind of accept things like that
tienen que aceptar
without
las cosas de este tipo
judging them.
sin juzgarlas.
Okay?
Muy bien.
Terminaste de escribir.
Did you finish? You finished, excuse me, writing your book in 2003. You said that in 10 years there have been many changes. How would you summarize in 5 minutes what we won't find in your book?
Well,
Esa la escribiste tú, ¿no?
okay. Most of those of the more meaningful
De la palabra,
things that I have learned since the time I've written
parte
that
de las
book,
cosas significativas
I've actually
desde
put
que
back
escribí
in
este
it
libro, son
in
cosas,
cases where I had to reprint.
ya en las
I run
revisiones.
I print books and then they all go away and I have to print more books. Well, when I do that, I fix things. And if there's something I've kind of discovered that's important, I'll stick that in, even if I have to pull out something else that's really not nearly as important. So most of those things have been put in there, but instead of a 5 or 6 page exposition, it may only be a couple of sentences. It may just be a pointer to it. What you won't find in the book, you will find in my videos on YouTube, because I tell you what I know, all of it, and I put it out verbally before it ends up in paper. And I will put it out with an hour's discussion verbally when it's only 3 sentences in the book. So the book and the videos are different. There's a certain amount of overlap. The videos are kind of about the same subject, but there's a lot more material. And what is most of this, what category would most of this material fit in? Most of it's the science. Most of it's the physics. that's missing in the book. It makes you glad you got the book, right? You skip the physics. That's because when I wrote the books, I didn't write them with the idea of doing physics. When I wrote the books in like 1998, 1999, 2000, I wrote these books for 5 years. The writing process took me 5 years. And I wrote them to explain the larger consciousness system. That's metaphysics. I wasn't really interested in explaining physics this way. I didn't even know I could explain physics this way. I wrote the books, published them, and probably 3 or 4 years after they were published, I came to a realization that the very same concepts that explained consciousness, the very same logic that explained consciousness, solved the 2 biggest problems in physics, and that was why particles are probability distributions, and why the velocity of light is constant. And it just kind of hit me. Actually, it was a fellow on the web that works with me, Ted Ballers. He asked a question. He sent me a little stuff, and what he wrote just caused an aha moment. And I looked at it and I said, well, geez, that's quantum mechanics, isn't it? And I looked back and I looked at what I had been saying and what I had written, and I said, I never noticed that before. But the same logic does the physics. And when I found that out, I found out that I could also do a lot of other physics problems. I started looking at the web more of what was going on, and I found Pear Labs, and I said, well, I can explain everything that happens at Pear Labs. And I did a little more, web search, and I saw what's Dr. Edward Teller, and he was using intent to raise pH in a beaker of water up and down and doing that, and he knew he could do it, but he didn't know why. I found the Japanese Dr. Emoto freezing water and crystals and changing those crystals by the kind of environment, the psychic environment he had in the crystals, and playing music, happy music and terrible music and so on. And I looked at that and I said, well, I can explain exactly how that works, you see. So then I started looking for things, and I found out that all of the mysteries, all of the big questions that are just hanging out there. We know this works. Placebo effect, obviously, was one. These things of science that are mysteries. They weren't mysteries any longer. I could explain those. And that was guess what? This metaphysics that I did is good science. It does better physics. So you'll find that in my book there's not a lot of that in there. Partly because what little I did know, I didn't want to bore you with. Because that's a tough enough book to read without having to do physics. But the rest of it is, I didn't put it in there because I didn't realize it until after that book was published. That part of it didn't become obvious to me at the time, even though I was a physicist. That's not the way I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it understanding consciousness, understanding the larger reality. That was where I was coming from. And just by accident, I solved a lot of physics problems. So that was a neat understanding. So you'll find most of the talk about physics on the videos on YouTube. So if you want to really hear what I'm talking about in terms of the double slit experiment and see it explained in detail, you won't find that in the book, but you'll find it on YouTube. Yeah, go to the Calgary lecture and you'll find I'm talking about the double slit for probably an hour. Don't let that chase you away from that video. It's probably more understandable than I did here because I have a lot of colored graphics and other things that made it a little easier to see the picture that I was presenting. So that's the main thing that's missing, is the science, because that came as an aha moment after the metaphysics was already done. So see, I didn't have everything in mind. I'm still figuring things out and putting things together. And then as more people brought me more stuff, you know, people will come to me and they say, "Are you a Tibetan Buddhist?" And I say, "Well, no, I wouldn't say that." And they'll say, "Well, I've been studying, you know, Tibetan Buddhism for 35 years, and everything you say is what a Tibetan Buddhist would say." I say, "Well, that's interesting." You know, and I get a lot of feedback, and as I do, and I'd ask them, I say, "Well, tell me why. You know, what are the fundamental principles there?" I get a better and better idea as time goes along that these principles connect all the dots, everything, and I didn't have enough information to know that it connected these dots and those dots and the physics dots when I wrote it, but it just turned out that way. And now I'm eagerly looking for dots that it doesn't connect. That would be indication that the theory isn't complete, that it needs modification maybe. So I'm open to, you know, all the stuff that might conflict with it. I want to know about it. All the stuff that it actually connects with, I want to know about that too, because it gives me a bigger and bigger picture of what's going on. But I didn't start out with, you know, I think I know everything and I'm going to write it down. I thought I know a few things, and it found out that it was a bigger picture than I even imagined. I thought I was doing good just to write about metaphysics and what consciousness was like and the purpose of our life and love, and I had all that part figured out. I didn't know that it did the rest.
What about angels? Are they part of consciousness? Do they exist? Do angels exist? Are they more evolved beings?
Okay. That brings up a good point that we did not discuss. That's why I love these questions, because there's so much to this. Like I say, we could sit here for weeks and never repeat. And I just don't think to talk about everything, because there's just too much. There's only a limited amount of time, so I talk until the time runs out, and the rest of it we don't talk about. But these are good things. Angels fit in the same category with guides, perhaps maybe a little different because angels have a religious connotation that the guides don't have, but basically these are entities that are non-physical that we interact with. And do they exist? Yes, they exist. How is it they exist? They exist like we do. Now, that'll probably be misunderstood. They exist, let's talk about guides first. Guides exist as our interface to the larger consciousness system. The larger consciousness system wants to communicate to us. We want to communicate with it. How do we do that? We can't communicate with a digital information system. How do you communicate with a digital information system if you don't have a keyboard or a mouse? We communicate by talking, listening, and interacting the way we communicate with each other. So the communication interface is a guide. Who has guides? People who can use them. Who never had a guide? People who aren't ready to use them. So if the system feels like it can help your evolution along by having a contact with you, it'll do that. You'll get information, and you will interpret that information as coming from another human being, kind of person like you. It's just that they're not physical. And then you call them a guide because they give you information that's helpful. And then you imagine that there's some kind of disembodied being that just floats around 24/7 waiting for you to ask a question. That's not true. They're just your interface with the larger consciousness system. You interpret them as a guide, as a humanoid kind of form. Because what else would you communicate with? You see? That guide just bubbles up out of the larger consciousness system to interact with you whenever you need to interact with it. And then it just dissolves back into the system. It's just information, history, and processing
y
just
procesamiento.
like we are.
Exactamente
That's what
de la
we
forma
are,
que somos
history,
nosotros. Eso es lo que
information,
nosotros somos. Historia, información,
processing,
procesamiento,
memory.
memoria.
That's what we are. And what do? We bubble up out of the larger consciousness system and go join a virtual reality so we can interact and grow up. The guide bubbles up out of that system and interacts with us to help us grow up. It's just another one of the ways that the system supports us in our mission to grow up here. So anybody wants a guide, anybody that can really use one, when I mean use one, I mean use it to help you grow up, not use it to find out how you should invest your money. Use it to find out how you should grow up better. Then, all you have to do is ask. Say, hey, I need help. Get somebody who can chat with me here and give me some guidance, some direction. You'll get it. Then all you have to do is open yourself. Ask the question, open yourself, and wait for the answer. Don't anticipate an answer. Don't even expect an answer. Just open yourself to it. Most of the time, you'll get that answer in terms of metaphor, maybe a picture, maybe just a feeling, maybe a sign, something that means something to you, something that's relevant to your question. You just need to be open to it. Some guides speak in your native language. They'll speak Spanish to you. They'll speak English to me. They'll speak French to a French person. They're not really speaking language. It's telepathic. They're giving you concepts and ideas, and you translate them into your own language. Because otherwise, you can't understand that. When you get a telepathic message, you have to translate it according to your own history and your language and all that, because we think in terms of language. If you don't translate it into language, you can't think about it. The only way we can process it is by language, so that's how we process it in our own language. A lot of people would really like to speak with their guides, but their guides just won't talk to them. The reason they won't talk with them is that talk enters through the intellect. Talk is an intellectual thing. And a guide doesn't really want to interact with your intellect. It wants to interact with you at the being level. Now, if your being level and your intellectual level have come together and are kind of connected and not far apart, then the guide can talk to you at your intellectual level. But if it talks to you at your intellectual level and all you do is process it intellectually and it never actually gets down to the being level, then it's just wasting its time. Your time too. Now you're intellectually involved in all this. I got a guide and he told me this and he told me that. And it's all intellectual, it's not useful. You see, so most guides don't like to interact at the intellectual level. They'd rather intellect at a intuitive level. You get your intuition connects with your guide. So it's available. Now, angels are in a similar condition, except they often have religious significances too. If a guide, if the system wants to talk to you, but you'd be scared to death if some voice just said, hello, my name's Harry, I'd like to help you out. You go, ah, and hide, then the voice says, hello. I'm the angel Gabriel, and I've come to help you out. And you go, wow, nice to meet you, Gabe. See, it's different. So because of your history and your background, you may talk to angels, because that suits you better. You may talk to gurus. You may talk to just your ancestors. Right? There's a lot of ancestor connection among some people. Whatever works for you because of your history and your background and your beliefs, if a communication is going to be useful, it has to be a communication that you can use. So, angels fit in the same sort of category. Yes, they exist. Yes, people interact with them. Yes, they get good information from them. Yes, it's about growing up, about love, about caring. That's what it's about here. So angels exist. And in the same way, devils can exist too, right? Because if you're afraid of monsters, and monsters frighten you, and you go into the larger conscious system, you'll find monsters. The monsters exist. Well, you create them there.
Sí,
the system will
diablos porque los
take the
vas a
form of a
crear.
monster and
El
go,
sistema
boom,
dará la forma de un monstruo y te dirá,
see what
"No".
you do,
Sí,
see
para
how
ver qué
you
haces,
react
para ver cómo
with that
reaccionas
choice
con
it's
esa
giving
decisión
you.
que tomaste y con esa
You see,
opción o elección
call
que
that
te
a fear
está,
test.
y que está poniendo a
Yes,
tu
there's
disposición.
monsters
Es una
running
prueba
around.
de miedo.
Whether they're going to hurt you?
¿Sí?
No.
¿Te van a lastimar?
Unless you
No.
have fear.
A menos que
If you
tengas
have
ese miedo.
fear
Si tienes miedo,
and they frighten you and you
y
come
alguien te
back and you're
espanta,
terribly
o sea, y
frightened, does that
regresas,
hurt you?
sí, y
Yes, because now you're
experimentaste un
afraid.
miedo más intenso,
More
cada
afraid
vez,
than you were.
claro que te
That's
lastimaron
going
porque
backwards.
ese miedo se está
So
incrementando.
they
Eso
can
es un
hurt you only
retroceso.
if you're afraid.
En otras
Only
palabras, te
by your
puede
fear. You
lastimar
can only be
únicamente si
manipulated
tienes
by
miedo.
your fear.
Únicamente podemos ser
Okay, so
manipulados
yes,
por nuestro
angels,
miedo. De modo que
guides,
sí,
they do
los
exist.
ángeles o guías
It's
sí
your
existen.
personal interface with the
Es
larger
su interfaz
consciousness
personal con
system.
el sistema de conciencia
And
más
because
amplio.
it's personal
Y
to
como
you,
es algo personal,
you'll know
en su
your
caso,
guides
sí,
have
sabrán
personality.
ustedes que sus
They have a
guías
sense of
tienen,
humor.
personalidad, e
They
incluso un
joke
sentido
with
del
you.
humor.
They
Van a
tease
bromear
you.
con ustedes, los van a, sí,
You see?
van a
Because
jugar las
that's the
bromas,
kind of
porque ese es
interface
el tipo
that
de
you can
interfaz
relate to.
con el que ustedes se pueden
More
relacionar.
human.
Es algo más humano,
So they act more human.
de modo que ellos son
And
más
they have
humanos.
history.
Y además
Everything you
tienen
say
historia,
and
todo lo que
think
ustedes
and
digan y
interact with
piensen,
that guide, that's
y
all
cómo
part of the
interactúan,
history.
todo será parte de
So
esa
the next
historia,
time you
de
need
modo
it,
que la
it's not
próxima
like
vez que lo
it's
necesiten,
some new guy
sí,
that doesn't know what's
no
going on.
necesariamente
You
vendrá
know,
un
that
nuevo
same
guía, o sea, que no sepa lo
history,
que está
that
pasando,
same
esa misma
knowledge,
historia,
that
ese
same
mismo
inputs there. So
conocimiento
guides are very
estará
consistent.
ahí, sí, y los guías por lo tanto son muy consistentes.
Sometimes you'll have two guides.
Y en ocasiones pueden
Some
tener los
people have
guías.
no
Hay
guides.
personas que no tienen ningún guía.
Some, it depends on your
Todo
activity.
depende
How
de
much
su
activity, how
actividad.
much can you
Vaya,
use?
¿qué tanto puedes aprovechar?
Some will have a male and a female guide.
Algunos pueden tener un guía hombre y una guía
Because
mujer.
they can get that information
Porque
better,
pueden o
you
tienen la
know.
capacidad de recibir
Some guy
información
tells you
mejor.
that, you're a little worried about what his,
Sí,
you know,
o sea, hay ocasiones en
other
las que
agendas
sí,
are, maybe, you know, you're not quite, but if
guía
this
hombre,
girl
o sea,
tells
nos
you,
dice
then maybe
algo,
you're
o sea,
more open to it,
podemos
or
ser
vice
menos
versa.
receptivos, o sea, porque
Or
no
let the
sabemos
girls
qué
tell you the gentle stuff, and let the
objetivos
guys
superiores
give you the
pudiera
tough
tener.
love.
Y a veces,
Whatever
sí, somos
suits
más
you,
receptivos a
that's
lo
what
que nos
you'll
dice
get.
una mujer y viceversa. Lo que les convenga o lo que se adecue más a ustedes es lo que van a recibir.